Again is Robert Morning Sky, and I want to go down just a couple of other avenues, and then we'll go to the phones. One is Egypt. We were beginning to get started with Egypt. And what parallels, if any, do you see between Egyptian prophecy and Hopi prophecy?
Okay, thank you. Again, in Egypt, I made a couple of predictions earlier, but let me very quickly go into a very significant figure in the repetitious cycles of ancient Egypt. There appears to be a figure that continues to surface. It is known as Sefek, S-E-F-E-K-H, Sefek, and it is literally a snail. If you can imagine a very kind of cartoonish figure, you have a snail with a chubby little body, a little head with a little line attaching that's the neck that attaches the head to the body.
Right.
There are two antennae with two little knobs at the end of the antennae, and then at the tail end you have a little round knob on the tail. We have found that this snail is a figure that is very likely describing again the procession. The two twins are the antennae knob. The head is very likely the long-tailed. The second larger circle, which is the body of the snail, is probably the Hana, and the little knob on the tail is very likely the purifier. Now, how do we come to this conclusion? The snail, besides being a relatively important figure, again, it depends on the individual as to whether or not they assign it any significance, but we find that the snail represents the number 7. Literally the number 7. We, again, are suggesting that ties directly into the 7 seasons, or the 7 years, between the arrival of the longtail and the figure of the Hana. One of the things that has now come out into the open about crop circles, one of those old proofs, as it were, that a crop circle was a legitimate phenomena, was that the circles of most of the formations had 7 concentric rings, 7 or 9, but generally 7 concentric rings in the body. Again, we're drawn back to the number 7. Anybody who has been following the crop circle phenomena will know that in the last 2 years or so, there have been an extraordinary number of snails, very clearly snails with the head, the body, and the antenna, that have been appearing. The other probably clearest, and I want to do this very quickly because I know that we've got time constraints. One of the Hopi prophecies very clearly says that a female with a horned head covering will appear at the end of time. Now, she is sometimes known as the horned-toed woman, but she will be recognized because she has a crown that has horns on it. If we go back to ancient Egypt, once again, if we go back to both Sumeria and Babylonia, we will find that the headdress that originally was the crown that represented royalty was a crown of horns. So we have a Hopi prophecy, and again, we don't have the time to elaborate on the horned woman, but she plays a very significant part in the end days. It is a sign of a symbol of royalty, regalness, and powers in ancient Egypt, Mesopotamia, and Babylonia. We find numerous instances where women play an integral part in the end times in Egypt, these ancient civilizations, even in some of the primitive societies, and I love the word primitive, I don't mean to denigrate, the Maoris, the Aborigines, the Hopi, even in the Dogon in some of the African tribes.
Well, Robert, I'm not surprised. Women had an integral part of the beginning, and so then why not of the end?
Well, it would make sense. I am the beginning and I am the end. And again, I mean, we're just recently just completed another series of books, of tapes in which we're describing the earliest religion that we have uncovered on this planet is a religion that is oriented towards a mother goddess. Now, please excuse me to your listeners and everyone. I am not an Isis mother goddess follower. I am not in any way going to tie myself into most of what I see out there, but I am going to suggest that the oldest religion found in ancient Egypt, even in the North American continent, even down in Australia, The oldest religion seems to be, I'm sorry, let me correct that. It is a mother goddess-oriented religion. The oldest religious artifacts are female goddess-oriented. We did and we meaning my family and I have done a relatively extensive study of the linguistics of some of the breakdown of the languages, and we find that most of the words are oriented, once again, towards the women. So Hopi prophecy in general suggests we are coming to a very significant point, a change in the way things are. And it is relatively clear that between the Hopi, the Egyptian, the Babylonian, and other cultures, that women play a significant role in the unveiling of the events to come.
Well, I would only say to that it figures. Robert, I do want to get to the lines if we can, but one last question, and that involves the way the Bible looks at the last days or the end times versus the way the Hopi look at it. Do you see parallels there?
Oh, absolutely, because, again, probably the clearest and most dramatic correlation is that the return of the long-tailed comet, the chasing star, Nangasahu, the blue star Kachina, one of the ways in which it will be recognized is that it will have a four-armed star on its face. I can easily see this interpreted as the Christian cross. Mm-hmm. The return of the divinity will be signaled by the cross that appears in the heavens. I think one only needs to go through Revelations and compare that to some of the list of which I have just recently read you, and the parallels are more than astonishing. They're very, very similar. And I think if you were to look at some of the parallel revelations in some of the other religions of the planet, you'll probably find the very same thing.
Well, when you unwind all this as you have this evening, people have a tendency, I think, in the modern day world, Robert, to ignore this kind of thing. And it's easier to ignore in the modern world for a majority of the people, and that in itself is a sign, I believe, that people are no longer listening to ancient wisdom.
We're ignoring the lessons of history, and it's sad to say that that's probably true. I know that I am just turning the half-century mark here, and I'm finding that even the 2 or 3 generations of young folk that are here are ignoring the history, the lessons that we learned in World War II, and even in Vietnam. There are young folks out there who are voting, who have families, who are trying to conduct their lives, who truly have, if any, they have a vague memory of what occurred in Vietnam. Most of them don't know what happened in World War II. And so even in our own brief lifetimes, we can see that the lessons of history are either being ignored or they're just not valid, they're just not important enough, and there's that old cliche that those who ignore history are doomed to repeat it. And that's precisely why I am hoping that we can put this information out and say, look, these are what the documents tell us, these are what the records say. You make the choice, folks, because my family and I, we're preparing. We have some ideas of what's going to happen. We could probably, as I say, go on for hours.
Well, maybe we will, but I want to say this to you. I'm in a chat room right now, in America Online, in their grassy knoll chat room in the Periscope area, and somebody typed a little while ago, all this stuff that your Robert Morning Sky is saying, liable to get you killed.
Well, I don't intend to go out for an evening jog again like I did last summer. I'm not going to get into any arguments with any automobiles. Certainly there are some topics that I will not discuss.
Like what?
Yes, like what? That's what you're going to ask me. Like what? There are some topics that are politically sensitive. I am sure that there have been individuals on your program and other researchers who are aware that these prophecies are being fulfilled quite literally and deliberately. I am again going to, and I would love to be able to have the time to discuss the number 23 and its connection with the comet Hale-Bopp, if time permits. However, I suggest again, there is a very deliberate, there is a plan behind what is happening. I am not suggesting that we have a new world order or some sort of a conspiracy. I am saying that what the ancients talked about long ago, the Egyptians, the Anasazi, the Dogon, and others, they have told us that they were visited by star beings. They have told us that they have been influenced by divine beings. And I am simply suggesting that everything that they have, most of what they have told us is happening once again. And all I can do is my family and I are simply trying to say, folks, you take a look, you make a decision. But I would also strongly advise, watch the primitives. Watch what the primitive peoples of this planet are doing.
All right, well then, I've got to ask you about one more thing. Some fairly primitive people on this planet are Australian Aborigines, and I understand that you have been consulting with them as you have Hopi elders.
That's correct.
What have you learned there?
Well, the stories in Aboriginal Australia are extraordinarily close. They have been recently trying to decide whether or not they would come forward with some of the knowledge, some of the wisdom that they have had. I'm fortunate to have met a woman, an elder woman, Lorraine Mossy Williams, who has, at some considerable risk to herself, because the political turmoil in Australia is not perhaps as stable as it is here. They still have young Aborigine men who are found hung in their cells. They committed suicide while their hands and feet are tied behind their back. So without getting into the politics of it, it's a little more difficult to talk about the kind of things I'm talking about in a relatively more conservative society. But they are pondering whether or not to talk about these prophecies. I will tell you that this very afternoon I had a conversation with a local television station, a gentleman who wants to put part of this story on the air, and the loudest voice was another Hopi individual who believed that these words, these prophecies, what I am talking about, should not be shared because they belong to the Hopi. I find that very disappointing, because to say that a non-Hopi would not understand because they are not Hopi is the same as saying he's not a white man, so he's not going to understand the white man's ways.
Some will not understand. Clearly, Robert, some will not.
Well, that's true, but it's reverse prejudice, and you know, I'm very fortunate to be here. We did have an argument with an automobile. I do believe the term accident should be in quotation marks, but you and myself and other people who are truly trying to explore the truth, we find ourselves at risk. But there's only one reason why you continue, because it's right. We may make mistakes. We may make errors in our judgment. But at least we can... There's an old Native American tradition. Anyone who has seen the movie Little Big Man might remember when Chief Dan George at the end of the movie goes out, and he challenges death, and he raises his staff of life to the heavens, and he challenges death to come out and to fight him this one last time. And he says, it is a good day to die.
Yep.
Now, that's not wishful thinking. That's not a death wish. That is simply saying, you know, I did everything I could. I have a 4-year-old little girl, and I want to be able to look her in the eyes when the Bahana appears. I want to be able to tell her, daughter, I did everything I could to tell them. I may have made mistakes, but daughter, I tried. History, as far as I am concerned, is not going to repeat itself in my family and with those I care about. We need to explore every single avenue. We must not be so civilized that we refuse to explore these possibilities. So, my apologies, and I hope that I don't sound like I'm on a soapbox, but thank you, Art Bell, for being a renegade. Thank you, Mr. Schrammick. Thank you to all the individuals who are trying to tell what they know. And thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to me in the last few minutes.
All right, well, here come some of the ladies and gentlemen. First-time caller line, you're on the air with Robert Morningsky. Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning,
sir. I want
to
first say that neither one of you are in trouble with me.
Well, where is me? Where are you?
My name is Marco, and I'm calling from Michigan.
All right.
First, I have a statement, and then I have a question. There's another prophecy in the Christian Bible that goes right along with the purifier. It's mentioned that there would be blood on the moon before the end time.
Gee, you mean the moon would be cloaked in red?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Fascinating.
And, Art, a couple of days ago, one of your guests, I don't remember who, mentioned the possibility of a gravity wave following the comet.
That's right.
And I was wondering if that could be linked to taking the power of the world. If this wave does hit the Earth, we're going to have planes falling out of the sky. Motors may stop because of magnetic fluctuations, things like that.
Well, I don't know. I guess it could be. I appreciate the call and the comment. We did indeed have a guest who said something exactly like that. All right, Robert, what I would like to do is concentrate as much as we're able on the phones and see what people have to say, see how carefully they are listening. So when we come back, we'll do exactly that. My guest is Native American Robert Morningsky, half Hopi, half Apache. Briefly, here's a question from Linda in Riverside, California. Art, could you please have Robert Morningsky tell the audience the name or names of his books and the publisher? I don't even know whether you've written anything. Robert, have you?
Yes, I have. I've written 4 books, and we have a series of audio tapes we've released and several videos of some of the appearances that we have made in the past. So we do have plenty of material available. As a matter of fact, we're issuing a brand new audio tape every week, updates on the new material and some of the events that are coming.
Okay, how do they get it?
Easiest way is to give us a phone call. My family is always here. We have a message machine should we not be awake. Give us a call. It's area code 602-404-8050 or area code 602-404-8094. So they have 2 lines that they can give us a call in case either one is busy. And my daughters would be happy to send them information or give them updates on all these newest releases. I'm working right now on an audio tape on specifically the Hail Bop Companion, in which we try to sum up some of the prophecies that we've been talking about this evening, and we provide a transcript with the sources, reference material where they can look up some of these Hopi prophecies. They can, take a look at them and see if they have a different decipherment and see what they can do with the information.
All right. For my own good and yours, I need to give these numbers again. Correct me if I got it wrong. Area code 602-404-8050. That's number 1, right?
That's correct.
All right. Phone number 2 is area code 602-404-8094.
That's correct.
All right.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
You bet. Wildcard line, you're on the air with Robert Morningsky. Hello.
Hello, this is Eric calling from Los Angeles. Good to hear you. Very, very fascinating stuff. I'm sure you
really is.
And just about everyone else out there does. A couple of comments culminating in a question. Before I get to that, I'd like to touch on Egypt for a second. I was recently at a Graham Hancock lecture in L.A., and Graham gave an update saying that he was aware. He had mentioned that, from what I remember, that some people from a university in the eastern part of the United States...
Florida.
Oh, Florida, okay. Were going to be going into Giza, and that he believed that there were several chambers that were apparently found, and that someone was going to go in and see something, and that apparently from radar scans taken, that the chambers did not appear to be empty, that they appeared to have some kind of consistency to the insides, which seemed to be very fascinating. And after the lecture, I had met somebody who had said that he was going to be going over there, a man who is the kind of guy who does not like to publish his findings, but apparently has been doing research on many different things relating to the pyramids in Giza for a long time. And he had also mentioned that something interesting was going to be going on in Egypt there. And anyway, I don't know if that's any help. I think we're all just waiting to hear something solid. On to the stuff about the cosmic stuff going on with Hail Bop and all the other the prophecies and stuff. Interesting stuff. I'm wondering, Robert Morning Sky, if you believe there may be any connection to what we're seeing in the skies and what we may be expecting to see in the skies in other different kinds of appearances unrelated to Hale-Bopp in the future of planetary catastrophism, or if you're aware of that study. Emanuel Velikovsky kind of seemed to kick that off, and other recent writers, such as a man named Donald Patton, who has written several books, who has actually been quoted by another Native American author, Vine Delora Jr., in several books relating to prophecies. I wonder if you believe there may be any connection.
Well, recently I was invited to do a television program in which I began to very lightly touch, nowhere near to the extent that I've been able to do this evening, and I was immediately labeled by the program's producers as a prophet of doom and gloom. In fact, I do not see that at all. The prophecies suggest that only if we are not one with the old ways, which certainly a case can be made for that there would be a cleansing. Frankly, I hear so many people that are saying, number one, the comet's going to collide with Earth. We have absolutely no evidence to suggest that. Quite the contrary, it is very clear that it's going to miss the Earth unless there is a deliberate changing of course. I think, yes, that some of the information that Mr. Velikovsky has presented has a great deal of substance and merit to it. I don't believe that the universe, and particularly our solar system, is as stable as some of our scientists have portrayed it.
Oh, absolutely not. As a matter of fact, an article in Science News, volume number 141, February 22nd of 1992, was an article called Chaos on the Clockwork, which basically actually finally, for the first time that many people have been aware of, that actual official astronomers with credentials have actually come out and said the solar system is not necessarily as stable as we want to think, and that it seems to be holding together by a thread, and one of many different things could set off some severe cosmic ramifications, which would obviously include Earth. A number of many things could set it off. It's quite a delicate balance.
Well, I think that's absolutely true. I agree with everything you said, and as I said, some, like Mr. Velikovsky, and I'm certain some of the ones that you have just quoted, we're basically saying the same thing. I'm suggesting that the comet Hale-Bopp, according to these patterns in the past, according to the prophecies, are telling, look, here is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 is about to occur. We do have the ability to make some alterations, but what we need to do is we need to find out more about the prophecies. We need to find out what the ancients wrote to us. And in fact, I think it's important that we do find out what is going on underneath the Sphinx. I think we need to know, what's going on under some of the structures in Mexico and in China. There are pyramids that dwarf the pyramids in Egypt, and we need to see what the records are that they sealed up underneath these structures. And I am extremely dismayed with the Antiquities Board in Egypt refusing to have legitimate researchers go in and try to uncover it. Again, the phenomena for me of those individuals who have in one way or another been affiliated with an occurrence with a pyramid, with a comet or something, and suddenly they become proprietary. Suddenly they become owners of the pyramid or the comet or something. Folks, everybody needs to be able to access the ancient past. I really do believe that the secrets to the future, what is going to occur, lies in the records of the ancient past.
Absolutely. I mean, I completely agree with that. And, it's our history collectively as a race that we're talking about. And every individual, regardless of where you come from, what you do, or what you believe, has a right to know about their history and where they come from.
All right. It was a very, very good call. Thank you very much. And I just had a message a little while ago from somebody again in this chat room that I'm in at the moment. And they noted that you have a 4-year-old, and their question was, how much of this have you shared with your 4-year-old?
Oh, you would be surprised. My daughter speaks as best as a 4-year-old can. She speaks both the Spanish, English, and the Apache tongue. She has, I know this sounds unusual for a Native American. It may seem totally out of context. She has her own computer. She is learning, she has a vocabulary that astounds even me. So she is well acquainted with, in quotation marks, the civilized world. But my daughter has also danced in powwows. She competed in her first dance at the age of 7 months, and she won a ribbon. She has been to ceremonies. She has been up on the mountaintop. We are sharing everything with her and simply, being very straightforward and saying, look, this is how it happens in Phoenix, Arizona. This is how it happens in Old Oribe. This is how it happens in Sydney, Australia. My daughter has received her name in Australia. She was given the name Black Swan. So I intend to share with my daughter and all my other children, meaning, I adopt family members all the time, but for Brian Brianne and Matthew, Daja, Bobby, Autumn Wind, all of them, I want to tell them, look, these are the stories of our primitive world. These are the stories of the civilized world. And I really believe that the young ones know far more than we give them credit for. They have memories. They're much closer to their cellular memories, their genetic memories, than we folks who have years and years of baggage to unlearn. So,
but how does a 4-year-old assimilate the information at the very beginning of life that what's going on this earth may be in its final days, not because of her behavior at 4, but because of those who have come before?
Well, we have not shared with her the idea that it's coming to an end. What we have said is it's going to change. As we have, for example, moved from, while I was performing, we were living on a guest ranch and she could go riding on a horse every day. Daughter, it is now changing. We are going to another place, and it's going to be a different way to live. So now she has the warmth. She has a mall that she can go walking around in. And so what we are saying is there is a change. Now, yes, we could say, daughter, the living on the guest ranch with the horses, it's at an end. It's over, no more. But we prefer to say it's going to change. And I'm going to suggest the Hopi prophecies are telling us just that. I don't believe planet Earth is going to come to an end. I think that things are going to change. In some cases, I really do believe there will probably be the light switch will probably go off, probably permanently. To some people, it's going to be the end of the world because they can't plug in their hair dryer, they can't plug in their cable TV. That may very well signal the end of the world to them. I'm suggesting it's a change.
A lot can be wrapped into that word change, but I certainly follow you. All right, east of the Rockies, you're on the air with Robert Morning Sky. Good morning. Where are you, please?
I'm in Tennessee.
Yes, sir.
I just had a comment before my question. I heard your show last night, Art, and I just wanted to tell you I visited your website for the first time tonight.
Ah.
And it's very impressive.
You saw the photographs, sir?
Yes, I did.
Can anybody look at all those photographs without saying, hey, something is obviously there, no matter what the so-called experts say? Dismiss these.
No, there's no way that anyone could look at those and say without doubting their own mind that there's something going on.
All right.
My question, you had mentioned earlier the Roman, and I believe you said the Greek prophecies. And I wanted to ask you if, since the Roman prophecies were the only ones that you mentioned that I caught that were in the area of Europe or Asia, do you see any similarities in that with the abundance of crop circles that seem to be profoundly in the area of Europe, mainly England? I mean, is there anything in the Roman prophecies that differ from the others that would, signify that this is a major area for that type of activity? Or
I'm not sure I quite follow the question, but I will say that there are numerous descriptions of, for lack of a better term, gods of change, gods or goddesses that do their, in quotation marks, they do their thing in order to create change. The crop circles seem to be a very clear indication that we are being signaled. Now, again, without, because I don't want to take away the work of a man whom I respect highly, Colin Andrews. Many of you may have heard about the film that has emerged that has the circles of light that are swirling around a grassy field. Suddenly the formation appears and they disappear.
Absolutely.
And there have been a lot of questions as to whether or not it's authentic, whether or not this thing is actually happening. And again, I don't want to take anything away from Colin because he deserves the credit for the work. I would suggest that he will very shortly make an announcement that is going to astound the world, and that you will have, without a doubt, evidence that the crop circles are definitely a signal, and that they are linked, and we didn't have time to get into the number 23 and why that plays such a crucial part, but Roman prophecies link the gods and goddesses of change to the Hopi, to the Egyptian, and specifically, I think, to the crop circles. They are the contemporary, the contemporary billboard. This is where we are being signaled in very clear manner. Change is about to occur.
All right. West of the Rockies, you're on the air with Robert. Morning Sky. Good morning.
Hi, this is Maggie from Arvada, Colorado.
Hi, Maggie.
And I had a statement and a question for Robert. About a year and a half ago, I was down in Uxmal, Mexico, and after visiting the pyramid, I had a dream before I came home, and it was of a crop circle. And then when I came back to Colorado, I found Ron Russell, who does a lot of flying over and into the crop circles. And he also told me that it was a Hopi Indian symbol, and it was the migration symbol, because about a couple of months ago, went down to Chimney Rock, and then Hopis were dancing there for the second time in that area. So some of the elders invited me down to the butterfly dance, and so they were telling me that was the migration symbol. And I was just wondering if you could tell me any more about the migration symbol and if it has any connection with what you've been talking about.
Well, the migration symbol is basically a sign or a mark that describes the path that the Hopi were assigned when they emerged from an underworld. Prior to these prophecies, there was a story that tells us that the Hopi people emerged from an underground world onto this world through an opening in the ground that is called Shipapu. The Hopi, when they emerged onto this surface world, were told that in order to live here, they would have to obey and to follow the instructions of the being responsible for Earth, who is known as Masao. Masao asked 4 separate clans to go in 4 different directions with a specific pattern in mind, a specific path. That is what has been known as the migration symbol. And one of the most pleasing things for me in one regard is my conversations with Colin Andrews and Busty Taylor, in which we do find a lot of Hopi symbols seem to be repeated in the crop circles. Perhaps the best way to describe it is that they aren't specifically Hopi and they're not specifically crop circles. These are all signals from the ancient past. And the migration symbol is a symbol we see over and over again in the crop circles and petroglyphs. And for anybody who follows crop circles, let me suggest that if you take a look at the most basic pattern, you will see a small round circle with a line attached to a larger circle that follows. This is the uneven dumbbell, the uneven circles, and I suggest that is screaming out to us the story of the long-tailed comet, the small one that precedes the much larger Bahana. My apologies, I wish I had more time to explain the migration, but there are several good books on the crop circles, and if you want, I can give you some names of some of the Hopi books, which I would recommend.
Okay.
All right.
Should I call that number then to get that?
Yes, you can call this evening, or one of my daughters is still up, one of my adopted daughters from Canada. I adopt a family. Karen is here tonight, and she'll help you out tonight, or you can call in the morning.
All right.
Thanks very much. And Art, I enjoy your show. Sometimes I don't get to hear as much because it comes on from 12 to to 5, and usually I'm asleep, but I hadn't been asleep all night with this one.
All right. Thank you so very much. And, Robert, hang tough. If you're good for another hour, we sure are.
I'm enjoying myself, Art. Thank you.
Good. Well, the phones are going nuts, so we'll be back shortly with Robert Morningsky, half Hopi, half Apache, Native American. We're discussing Hopi prophecy. If you will be quiet and listen with an open mind, I think some alarm bells will begin to go off. And I would like to remind everybody, this will be a 4-hour program. You can get a copy of it with all contained by calling 1-800-917-4278. I wanted to get that out. Once again, the number to get a copy of this program is 1-800-917-4278. And that applies for any other program we do with a guest. 1-800-917-4278. I'm Art Bell, and we'll be right back with more. Stay right where you are. This is the American CBC Radio Network. All right, here we go once again with Robert Morningsky. Are you there, Robert?
Yes, sir, I am. Thank you.
Good. We'll try and devote this hour as much as possible to those who have questions, and they are legion. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with Robert Morningsky. Good morning.
Good morning. Entertaining show you have there.
Thank you. Where are you, sir?
I'm in Dallas, Texas.
That'd be Cliff Country, KLIF.
Yeah. I heard a little while ago you mentioned Velikovsky.
Yes.
This is the same guy who claims that the moon was a comet that bounced between Jupiter and Venus before settling into orbit, and who also claims that hydrocarbons are a gas. And what my question is when you're dealing with scientists who make such really outrageous claims, how you feel that affects your credibility?
Well, I personally did not, I have not heard these claims that you've attributed to him, though it's very possible. My reference to Mr. Velikovsky, I did not quote him. What I was saying was that if he is saying, as I understand him, that the solar system is unstable, I absolutely agree. Now, the specifics I may very likely disagree with. Because
in addition, to be fair, caller, that was a caller who brought that up, not Mr. Morningsky.
Okay, well, I heard the name there, and it really concerns me when, you make these predictions, and then you throw in names like that, and someone who claims that a hydrocarbon is a gas, that's just totally ludicrous.
Well, that may or may not be, but be it as it may, Mr. Morningsky did not bring up the name, caller.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and have a good morning. First-time caller line, you're on the air with Robert Morningsky. Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. We've got a lot of echo or something on this line.
Yeah, I guess we do. It's a terrible time for such a thing.
Where are you calling from?
This is Mark. I'm calling from San Diego.
All right, Mark.
I was struck by Mr. Morningsky's remarks about the swastika symbol and the star with the 4 arms on its face and so forth. This reminded me that Carl Sagan wrote a book about the time that Halley's Comet was due in '86 and devoted a chapter to the whole history or evolution of the swastika symbol and how this was not the kind of geometric form that appears in nature, and yet it was recognized in all these different cultures, primitive cultures all around the world. And he speculated, now this from Carl Sagan, Mr. Extraordinary Ideas Require Extraordinary Proof, he speculated that this may have come from the apparition of a comet coming more or less straight at the Earth with outgassing from 4 sides as this thing rotated. And he also made the point that until the rise of Nazi Germany and the adaptation of the swastika as their emblem, that the swastika had been seen by primitive cultures around the world as an omen of good tidings and so forth. And so the 2 questions I have for the guest are whether a swastika symbol has any particular, or appears or has a particular relevance or reference in Hopi culture, and in a more general way, whether Hopi culture or Native American cultures share what a lot of the world's civilizations or early cultures believed about comets, which was that they were portents of evil change.
Mm-hmm. All right. Go right ahead, Robert.
Okay. Actually, I agree with virtually everything that the that Mark, this is Mark, correct? That he had said, because originally the swastika, and when I use the term swastika, it is not the geometric swastika that was used in Germany in World War II. In fact, it is a round-armed, swirling figure. Originally, the swastika in many cultures around the globe was a symbol of good fortune. The Aryan swastika, the German swastika, is actually a mirror image of the original swastika. In other words, the German swastika was flipped over and it has a counterclockwise swirl, where the original swastika has a clockwise swirl. Generally, the swastika, and I suggest in the Southwest with the Anasazi and with other primitive peoples across the globe, that symbol had to do with creation. It had to do with migration. It had to do with the beginning times. I can easily surmise that the swastika could find its origin in the swirling of a galaxy, possibly in a comet, and again, it is an interesting perspective, and it's plausible, as Mr. Sagan says, a comet coming head-on would give off a swirling swastika-like pattern. And so the swastika generally is tied in with early creation, with the beginning times. I would generally feel that it probably implies the swirling of the stars. We could get into the stories about the cosmology, how the universe was swirling and began. But my feeling has been that it was tied in with the swirling of galaxies, the swirling of the universe, but it would not be altogether implausible that it was a comet headed directly for us. So,
all right. Robert, let me ask you, or press the second portion of his question, and that is, in Hopi prophecy, why is a comet apparently a harbinger of evil? Evil.
Well, again, I think it's a matter of perspective. One of the first conversations that you and I had about the blue star, which is, again, my name for the Hale-Bopp, one of the first conversations we had was I welcome the change. I am looking forward to the insanity as we see it today. I'd like to see it end. I know that there are going to be some people suffering because there won't be any MTV or sports TV, etc.
The end of time, truly. Huh?
Exactly. But again, it's a matter of perspective. I know that there are many cultures and societies who have viewed comets as harbingers of doom, as harbingers of bad tidings. Again, I think it's perspective. I think it means change. And for some people, it's not a good thing. And for a few demented, few renegades, I think change is something we look forward to.
Indeed. The number 23, I can't let you get away tonight without covering the significance of 23.
Well, thank you. Because this is a piece that we have recently uncovered and that has continued to astound me. Earlier, I began to talk about some of the Roman gods and goddesses who were tied in with times of change. For example, in Rome, they tend to have more holidays festival days that they have contributed to our calendar. In Rome, the god Terminus, who was the god of boundaries, the celebration of the day or the feast of Terminus was on the 23rd of February. The Romans also celebrated the Sacred Day of Laurentina. Laurentina was an earth goddess, and she was the one that celebrated the old year and the new year, the potential of the new year. So she was a goddess directly tied into changeover, a change of eras. Medusa, the crone of spiritual release, her day was celebrated on the 23rd also. Laurentina, her festival day was the 23rd of December. And fascinating that the I Ching or the I Ching, depending on the individual, an old method of divining the future in the Orient. The I Ching uses tiles that are, depending on the progression, they tell your future. But we found that the 23rd hexagram, the 23rd tile, literally means to break the line or a time of change. Now, we can come up again with numerous instances in which the number 23 indicates, at least to the ancients, a time of change. Well, I stumbled on this by accident, and allow me to very quickly go through the data on the comet Hale-Bopp.
Please.
Hale-Bopp was discovered on July 23rd, 1995.
666 billion miles from Earth.
Right. On July 23rd, 1996, the comet Hale-Bopp split into its two separate bodies, the mysterious eyes.
That's right, and we've got that photograph if you want to see it, folks.
Exactly. On March the 23rd of 1997, the comet Hale-Bopp will be at its closest point to Earth. It's going to be 123 million miles from Earth. Now, this is data, folks. This is not
No, it is true. It is true.
The projected orbital return, originally projected at 3,600 years, the new projected orbital return of the comet Hale-Bopp is 2,364 years. Now, we again said, oh, what's going on here? I'm sure that all your listeners know that there are 23 chromosomes in the male sperm, 23 chromosomes in the in the female egg. It takes 23 pairs of chromosomes combining together to create a change in the womb of a woman. This is called birth or an infant.
Wow.
We have found that the DNA filaments, that every 23rd angstrom, there is an irregularity. For some reason, there is an irregularity, a defect, a change in the 23rd angstrom of the DNA. We then began to look, could the ancients have been trying to signal us, or were human beings, the ancient ones of Earth, trying to signal the gods? We found, for example, that the west side of the Great Pyramid is 230 meters in length. The east side, the north side, the south side are all 230 meters in length. Coincidence, I'm sure. The estimate that we have of the number of blocks in the Great Pyramid, 2.3 million blocks in the Great Pyramid. Now, we could go on and on. There is a physical cycle, for example, in biorhythms. There is a rhythm that says that every 23 days you peak physically. Okay, take a look at the sun. We found that there is a cycle in the sun. Every 11 1/2 years,
right,
the poles flip. The North Pole of the sun becomes the South Pole.
Well, they begin to detect sunspots with the opposite polarity.
That's correct, exactly. So what we have is an apparent 11 1/2 year solar cycle. We have solar sunspots and storms every 11 1/2 years.
By the way, there are reports, credible reports, saying they have just detected sunspots of the other polarity. It has just occurred.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm sorry. And the point being that when the polarity reverses itself, in order to return back to its original position, we have a 23-year cycle. Now, it goes beyond that, folks. The planet Earth is tilted from direct vertical axis 23.4 degrees from vertical. The highest point north latitude that the sun rises in the summer is, guess what? It's 23.4 degrees. This is known as the Tropic of Cancer. The lowest latitude south that the sun reaches, 23.4 degrees, Tropic of Capricorn. We can go on and on and on and on about this thing, but what was most fascinating was that the comet Hale-Bopp continues to bring forward the number 23. It could be an amazing coincidence. We took a look at the comet Hyakutake. We found that at its closest point to the sun, Hyakutake was 0.23 astronomical units away. Again, a massive coincidence. However, let me make one last comparison here on the number 23. We've got pages and pages of 23, and it's data, folks. It is not opinion or perspective. It's data. Is the contemporary world, is NASA, is our government aware of the number 23 and its significance, meaning change? We began to take a look at the Apollo program. I don't want to get into some of these unusual facts that I have heard, But we found that Apollo 11, the very first landing on the moon by human beings, occurred at a landing site that was 23.5 degrees east longitude. Great. What a coincidence, Robert. But guess what, folks? Apollo 12, the very, very next landing on the moon, occurred at 23.4 degrees west longitude. I am going to suggest to you that the powers that be on the planet today know something. One last one, I apologize, in regards to Native American prophecy. Not long ago, in the year 1994, a lot of Native American elders flocked from around the country to go and see the birth of a white buffalo calf.
That's right.
Now, this was significant because generally prophecies of Native America suggest that in the end times, a white buffalo calf would be born, and it would be a female. Curiously enough, a white buffalo calf, a female, was born on September 22nd, 1994. Now, why is the 22nd significant? It is the eve of the Day of Change. John F. Kennedy assassinated on November 22nd. And the last day of the Mayan calendar, December 22nd in the year 2012.
So do you think March 23rd of 97 will be an interesting day?
Absolutely. I am on pins and needles. I don't know what to expect. I would love to be wrong about this stuff, but I do believe the 23rd of March is going to be highly significant.
Robert, do you think that something will occur for which traditional science has no explanation?
I think we're already experiencing that, but it's one of those things that I believe on March the 23rd, I'm going to agree with you. I think we're going to have something in our face, something absolutely undeniable. And by the way, I was just going through some of Jose Arguelles' data, and he discovered that there was a grand trine, which means 7 of 9 planets were all lined up. And they occur only once every 23,000.4 years. Yes, folks, it could be an extraordinary coincidence. But, as I said, if they want to call and find out, we'll send them the information and let them decide for themselves.
All right, there you have it, folks. 23. West of the Rockies, you're on the air with Robert Morning Sky. Where are you calling from, please? Hello there.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm calling from Madera, California, just outside of Fresno.
All right.
And my name is Alan, and he kind of lost me. He talked about a snail and the number 7, and that was one of my questions, where the snail and the 7 were...
7 seasons, sir. Probably hunting seasons, or equating to years.
He talked about the crop circles and the snail.
Yes, there are numerous crop circles that have shown up with the snail as the central part of its formation, yes. And again, these snails, I wish we had more time, can easily be tied into some more complex, what are called pictograms, in which we see uneven dumbbells, and we see the number 7 appearing again and again. So I wish we had more time. My apologies, but the number 7 is tied into the 7 seasons between the appearance of the long-tailed and Bahana.
All right, Robert, hold it right there, and we will be right back. This is CBC. Robert Morning Sky, and this just in from AP, actually from a listener, listening to WWTN in Nashville. Associated Press, mountain of ice. An iceberg the size of Rhode Island that sheared off the coast of Antarctica could drift for 10 years before it ever melts. The berg measured about 54 miles by 27 miles. Now, that's more than 1,400 square miles when it split from the coast of East Antarctica in May. According to Australian scientist Neil Young, its sheer walls rise 100 to 160 feet above the waterline, descend about 1,000 feet below it. Australia's Antarctic Division, which is tracking the fragments by satellite, said it may be 10 years before they drift north into warmer water and obviously melt. Robert?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's very interesting. I was just, as you were reading the article, the announcement, I was taking a look at the prophecy. And what it says very clearly is that the poles will release their frozen waters. I may have made an error by saying that it would melt, but the poles will release their frozen waters.
Well, if they do that, eventually that which is released will melt. It'll get to warmer water. And even conventional wisdom scientists know what that will do to the coastal areas. One quick question for you from a listener. How do we prepare for the coming events, the change, spiritually and physically?
Well, I think the first thing that we need to do, again, is we need to look at, the old records, the old documents. What is it that's going to happen? And I've got to tell you, I'm very honored to have had the chance to share so many of the pieces of the prophecy with you. These are things that we can look for so that we can begin to set our house in order, so to speak. Spiritually, mentally, physically, there are so many things. My apologies. At best, I can, I would have to simplify and say that one of the difficulties I have with many of the lecturers and speakers on the professional circuit today is that they say that we should wrap ourselves in light. Now, without getting into the debate, the original linguistic root of that word, light, was actually enlightenment. What we should do is wrap ourselves in enlightenment. We should learn what it is that is being said, what it is, or what it is going to take to survive when the electricity goes off. In other words, I suggest we need to be self-sufficient. We need to know how to survive under conditions from no electricity and no air conditioning to literally being able to survive out in the mountains or the forest, the desert, wherever one might be, camping skills on steroids, so to speak.
How many people in modern America do you think are prepared for that?
Modern America, I would be hard-pressed to think. I would be pleased if there was 2 or 3% that would be prepared.
All right. Let's go back to the phones. First-time caller line. You're on the air with Robert, Morning Sky. Good morning.
Hi, this is Sam from St. Joseph.
Yes, sir.
I've got a question. Is this comet, this Hale-Bopp comet, are we going to be able to see it with the naked eye? And if so, where do we look?
The answer is clearly yes. And at the end of March, the beginning of April, I guess the peak moment around the 23rd, you will indeed be able to see it. If it meets expectations, its tail is said to perhaps cover as much of a quarter of the sky. Long-tailed comet, indeed. So that's the answer to that question. Wildcard line, you're on the air with Robert, Morning Sky. Hello.
Good morning, gentlemen. This is Bill from Youngstown, Ohio.
Hi, Bill.
Hi. I wonder if you could not cut me out till I hear the answer, since you went off the air 45 minutes ago.
In Ohio, yes.
I wonder if this prophecy has been speculated. Jesus made a very, very aggressive prophecy. I remember from childhood. I don't know which gospel it's in, and it's something to the effect that without warning, the sky would be filled with angels. And then he gives some admonitions, the 2 of which I remember. One is, if you wake up, don't wake up your spouse, run. Then there's another one, if you're in a field, don't tell anybody else, just run. It almost sounds like, the boat leaves at 8:04, and if you don't get on it, you're going to miss it.
Yeah.
Could that relate to this?
All right.
Absolutely. Now, the last 2 statements that you made about waking up in leaving your spouse and in the field running, I personally am not familiar with that. It rings a very vague little bell, but I don't specifically recall it. However, let me go back to the signals of the end of time. Once again, one of the prophecy corollaries says that there will be warriors that will descend from the sky to liberate the Hopi and the good people. Now, again, in Native America, normally warriors adorn themselves with feathers and long flowing tassels and robes. I can very easily equate the image of a warrior in feathers and what may appear to be wings with angels. So I would suggest that is very close to the prophecy that the sky would suddenly be filled with angels.
Fascinating. Fascinating. Whether you listen to Hopi prophecy, or people who divine their information otherwise, or modern-day prophets, or even Catholic prophecy, Father Malachi Martin, everybody seems to be saying more or less the same thing. Different paths, but very much the same thing. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with Robert Morningsky. Hello.
Good morning, everybody. This is Anonymous and Accident-Free. Love your show, Art.
Where are you? Roughly.
Iowa.
Iowa, all right.
Yatahe. Robert, thinking about twins, you mentioned the white buffalo calf, and are you aware of the other one, May of 96, on the Pine Ridge?
Yes, I am, and I'll tell you something that is, again, it is a secret that I think has now been revealed to the public. One of the proofs, so to speak, or the confirmations that an event is significant and that it participates in prophecy is that it always appears in pairs. For example, the beginning of the procession, it is necessarily a pair. It needs to be twins. Many of the elders did not speak of the fact that once that first white buffalo calf was born, and it was a female, it was absolutely significant, but it was only the first one. In order that the prophecies be confirmed, it was absolutely necessary that a second one be born. And when the second one was born in, what was it, 96?
Yeah.
Yes. It absolutely confirmed that this was the harbinger. This was the sign that the end times are imminent. And Native American elders across the United States had to go back home and start making decisions as to whether or not they would speak out on what they knew. So, yes, I'm aware of it. It is the confirmation that the prophecies are being fulfilled.
I also heard about the birth of the second one, by the way.
One more thing. This is documented public knowledge, so no big deal. Grandfather Ben Yakya, the House of Micah, December of 92.
That's correct. Thomas Ben Yakya approached the United Nations. One of the prophecies said that in the end times that the Hopi elders would have to go to the House of Micah, M-I-C-A, and that they would have to address the distinguished people there, even though it would take as many as 4 times for the address to be heard. Yes, that's another corollary in the prophecy, yes.
But the documented thing that's alongside of that I don't know if you have, is that out of the blue tidal wave, simultaneous to his calling of spirits and speaking for the whole 10 minutes he got, and that hailstorm in New York, which has been the beginning of all these natural, strange weather things.
I'm familiar with the occurrences of the weather, the hailstorm. I cannot assign that as the beginning of the changes. I think that they were already going on. I think it was a confirmation of, again, the prophecies that Micah, the House of Micah, had to be addressed. Also, let me just very quickly say, because I know we're getting to the end of your program, and I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about this, I want to emphasize again that I am not an elder or spokesperson. I only represent myself. And in regards to these prophecies, I have not divined them. I am not a psychic. I mean, what I am presenting to you is based on very hard research. It took me 30 years of working not only on these prophecies, on crop circles, Egyptian, etc. I really want to make very clear to your listeners that I am not a psychic and I have no special powers. This is a nobody with no credentials who's done a lot of hard work, and surprisingly, or perhaps not surprisingly, I find myself providing information that seems to support prophecies from, as you said, Art, the Bible, Catholic, Roman, Egyptian, Hopi. It's a fascinating place to be. I came to this place out of hard work and research.
Well, anybody who is quiet and listens, not just to you, but to many others, has got to conclude that there is something going on, that there is really something here. It's coming from too many sources and sounding too similar to not be true. West of the Rockies, you're on the air with Robert Morningsky. Hello.
Yes. Good morning, Art and Mr. Robert Morningsky. My name is Christopher, calling from KABC in Monterey Park.
Yes, sir.
And I had a question. I really want to commend you on a great show, and for you coming on the air, you and Robert, and giving a lot of information. It's very uplifting, I find it. And I had a question for Mr. Morning Sky.
All right.
And I was wondering what he thought, like, as far as if he can collaborate, maybe like on what maybe the messages from Guerin Vidal, Spain, and how Father Malachi believes in those, I guess, visionaries that had, and that there will be a celestial worldwide warning, and it would be occurring around April, I guess. And also another question is that it'd be great to get Father Malachi Martin and
well, you well know what Malachi said, and I'll just leave it there.
Between winter of '96 and spring of '97.
You got it.
Yes. And I was wondering what Robert Morning Sky thought on what his thoughts were on that.
Well, I bet he thinks synchronicity, but Robert?
Well, I think absolutely that's the case. Isn't it a fascinating coincidence? I am not familiar with all of the prophecies you've been talking about in the comments. I'd be very honest, I have not had a very good experience with the professional circuit. I don't know if this gentleman is on the circuit. I have stayed very clear of a lot of the other prophets and prophecies and visionaries, only so that I not be, let's say, suggested or led. However, I guess it is not a surprise that what we are saying and what this other gentleman is saying is, gee, what a remarkable coincidence, isn't it? Amazing stuff.
Amazing stuff. Wildcard line, you're on the air with Robert Morning Sky. Good morning. Hello there. Going once, going twice, gone. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with Robert Morning Sky. Hello.
Yes, good morning. This is Tom in Minnesota.
Hi, Tom.
First of all, I'd like to point out there are 23 essential amino acids that make up our body. Also, Robert mentioned briefly they may already be here. My question regards the extraterrestrial contact as we're seeing it now. How does that relate to this whole aspect?
All right.
I missed the last part of the question.
He's asking extraterrestrial contact and how all this relates to what you're speaking of.
Boy, a good question, and all I can basically say is that I think there are numerous researchers and writers out there who have suggested the very same thing that we are saying in our books. We're saying that extraterrestrials have been part of our past. They have been part of ancient history. We have gone a little bit further and said that extraterrestrials are, in fact, responsible for the divine intervention in evolution that resulted in man. Natural evolution alone would not do it. There has to be intervention of some sort, and whether it be extraterrestrial or divine, again, is an outside influence. We have suggested, however, that if they were present once long ago, the question that has to be asked is, where are they now? Where have they been? My position is that they have never gone, that they are present, and that they reside with us. The reason we don't recognize them is because we're not taught to look for the differences. We are, in fact, created in the image of the divine. We are the children of star beings, as the Aborigines and Native Americans say. We are created in their image. The difference is that, I don't think there are a lot of people who could tell the difference between a barn owl, a great horned owl, the different species of owl. But there are human beings walking this earth that we consider to be earth-born and part of it. I'm going to suggest that there are extraterrestrials present and well and alive in our society today. Unfortunately, time doesn't permit. I believe that, yes, some are benevolent. I believe that some have assisted. In the Hopi world and in Native America, some of these beings have interfered with, punished, and actually been the demons that we have portrayed in many of the religions. There has been an ongoing relationship with star beings since mankind was created. Again, without it sounding like a commercial, I would only refer you to my book in my position as to where we stand on that. They have always been here.
All right, I'm going to give out the two numbers for people to get your materials. And they are area code 602-404-8050. That's 602-404-8050. The other number, also area code 602-404-8094. That's area code 602-404-8094. And these numbers are actually coming right to you and your family, aren't they?
Yes, sir, they are. They're here to my home, my office, and my house.
You're going to be busy.
Well, I hope, sir. I really hope that's the case, because I really think it's a significant time. And in these last couple of moments, Art, again, to you and Mr. Schrammick, thank you for starting the new examination of the comet Hale-Bopp. Thank you for being such a demented renegade. It has been an honor for me to speak to you these many times, and keep going, Guy. You've got a feather in the makings there. Thank you.
Yeah, that's me, a demented renegade. And but again, I say, if you don't do something different, then it's not possible to discern the difference between yourself and anybody else, because everybody else out there is following right along in certain prescribed footsteps. Now, you've really had your neck out for a long time, and there have been a lot of people who've taken a chop at it. Are you going to remain low profile? Are you going to not be making many appearances as you have not been?
I will probably be very, 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 very picky about what I'm going to do. Time again did not permit. We are about to begin a series of new workshops in January and February, one a month, in which we're going to present not just the prophecies, but we're going to talk about the world's oldest religion. We're going to talk about, God help me for saying the words, the mother goddess religion. And I can only sum it up in this regard. I really do believe that the future of mankind lies in the hands of womankind, and that the comet Hale-Bopp, the events that are about to occur, must have the full participation and have women at the helm, but they must be supported by the men of the planet.
Well, that just doesn't surprise me, because as I said to you earlier in the show, Robert, women were here and instrumental in the beginning. Doesn't it make sense? They would be here and instrumental in the change.
You have proven yourself a demented renegade, sir.
All right, Robert, thank you so very much. It's, I think, coming up on 4 o'clock there in Arizona.
Yes, it is. And again, thank you very much for having me on, Art, and I do appreciate the opportunity to be with you and your guests. Thank you very much, and keep doing what you're doing, guys.
Good night, my friend.
Good night.
All right, that's Robert Morningsky, and I hope you have enjoyed that. I knew it was going to be good, and if you listened carefully and quietly during the preceding 4 hours, I'm sure you had a lot of alarm bells of recognition go off. If you did not hear all 4 hours, or you would like them chronicled for you, we do that. We have a service now that does a very efficient, fast job of getting tapes out to you. They eliminate the news and the commercials, and they give you simply the content. You can get a copy of this program, chronicled so, by calling beginning now 1-800-917-4278. I want to be clear that you get that number. That's 1-800-917-4278. When we come back in a moment, we will do an hour of open lines, and you'll get an opportunity to comment on this or any other thing you want to comment on. From the high desert, this is the American CBC Radio Network.